संस्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः. Namaskar to all of you. Welcome to the study of the great master Ramakrishna, the great master, or Leela Prasanga as written by Sharadanandaji Maharaj. Last time we had come to a stage where we had been in Kamarpukur and were noticing and participating in the life of Sri Ramakrishna, there being of the same age of Ramakrishna, Gadadhar there. Now Gadadhar is to step into another stage of life where he will be coming to Calcutta and he will be staying in Dakshineshwar. And then the important event of his life, that is the sadhaka, the aspirant, the spiritual aspirant who is going to realize God and shows the path of how to go forward in spiritual life. The actual thing which will inspire us as sadhakas. We are all aspirants, we are all mumukshus who want liberation. So here we will find that Ramakrishna, until now it was we were enjoying his childhood and so many other things. Now the life of the sadhana, life of the spiritual disciplines will start. So now before entering to that part, let us study what Sharadanandaji Maharaj has written about this part of the life, the sadhaka part of the life. So what this part contains. So we can see what Sharadanandaji Maharaj is himself explaining about this. He gives an introduction before getting into this spiritual aspirant's life. So we shall go to that. We will read or we will understand that aspect and then dive into the real aspirant's life. Okay. So Sharadanandaji Maharaj is telling what this part contains. The author is telling. Sharadanandaji continues telling, by the grace of God, the discussion on the unique spiritual practices of Sri Ramakrishna as a spiritual aspirant is now presented to the public. We have attempted in this section not only to describe the nature of the sadhanas he undertook. So sadhana, from here you can understand, because many of the people are from different countries, they may not be having the Sanskrit terms, the background. So sadhana meaning any endeavor to attain some goal, that's called sadhana. For us here, in the case of Sri Ramakrishna, his endeavor or his goal was to reach the highest, that is the finding the truth. So here we have to take it as spiritual sadhana. Suppose you are learning music, then it becomes Sangeeta sadhana. So suppose you are studying, you are going to the school, then that will be Vidya sadhana, Vidyabhyasa sadhana. So everything, whatever you do to learn something, to go forward in any aspect of life, that is called sadhana. Spiritual discipline of any kind is called sadhana. Here we have to take it as, in this context, we have to take it as spiritual sadhana, adhyatmika sadhana. So this term, when it comes sadhana, you should keep it in mind, that is discipline or spiritual discipline. Sharadanandaji Maharaj is telling, we have attempted in this section not only to describe the nature of the sadhanas he undertook and the philosophical principles underlying them, but also to take a historical view of this period of his life extending from his 17th to his 40th year. Now we are going to study the aspect of Gadadhar's or Ramakrishna's life from his 17th, now he's a teenager, from his 17th to his 40th year. Until then, we can see he is doing various kinds of spiritual practices. He had realized, he had gone, reached the summit, but after that, we know he wanted to experiment. He wanted to go through all the spiritual practices to realize all gods and goddesses, whatever might be there in this universe from the time of the human history. So whatever we see, this the what do you call the ancestral worship to the religious life takes, as Swami Vivekananda tells, it starts with these two things. What is that? The nature worship and ancestral worship. So then it goes on developing and developing, and it has reached up till now to this highest realization of God. So whatever was there from the beginning of the human history up till now, whatever might be the path. So Ramakrishna took up all those things and then practiced that, made himself, made his personality, his body, his mind, and his intelligence, everything was made as a laboratory. And he started testing, he started practicing, and found out the truth, where it leads to. Then finally, he came to the conclusion that all the paths, if you do it, take it up sincerely and do the sadhana properly. Sincerity is very important. Vyakulata and sincerity. Earnestness and sincerity. If you do the sadhana, spiritual practices, discipline, it takes to that one same goal. That is God, formless, attributeless, that highest state of God. It will take everybody, every path will take to the same goal. That's what he came to know. And another great thing he gave, the summary of that sadhana was, as many people, so many paths. So you should not get confused telling that whatever I follow is the right path. The paths are only to define how to go, the roads. But anybody can take whichever road they want. They may go start walking on the lanes, and they may start going through the aeroplane, they may start going through the balloon, air balloons, and they may start going through the walking through the fields, they may go on the horse, but they will, everybody will reach the same destination. So likewise, as many people, not that some group of people, as many people, so many paths. So that was what Ramakrishna declared. So all these things we will see while we are studying Ramakrishna's life of sadhaka or sadhana. So that's why it's a very important aspect. As the spiritual aspirant, that is called sadhaka. So therefore, this part of the book, as the spiritual aspirant, may be regarded as the history of his life as an aspirant down to the time when his boy disciples, including Swami Vivekananda, came to his holy feet. We entertained great doubts at the time of writing the present part of the book whether it would be possible to ascertain the dates of all the important events of the Master's life. So during that period, that is 175 years back, keeping history, keeping diary, the way we do in the Western world was not known. Or rather, it would have been there earlier. That was all decimated by the British rule, and all Indian education was completely destroyed, and they wanted to introduce the Western type of thing like the Macaulay's English education. So all that thing had been destroyed. Everything was gone. So you can see what was the condition of India at that time. So that's why Sharadanandaji Maharaj is telling, we entertained great doubts at the time of writing the present part of the book, whether it would be possible to ascertain the dates of all the important events of Master's life. Because Sharadanandaji Maharaj was highly educated, Vivekananda and others, Ramakrishna Anandaji, they were all educated in the Western sense, whatever we call present day degrees and master degrees, and they were all educated in that way. So whatever they would do, they used to do scientifically, historically, and they used to collect facts and do everything in a detailed manner. So that's why Sharadanandaji Maharaj is telling, we entertained great doubts at the time of writing the present part of the book whether it would be possible to ascertain the dates of all the important events of the Master's life. Although he had told many of us the facts of his life. So all these, many of the facts which are given here have been collected by none other than the hero of this book, Master himself, Ramakrishna, the sadhaka, or whatever. He has told all these incidences, but it was not told chronologically. He had mentioned so many incidences. So all these disciples had collected that fact, kept that in their mind. Although he had told many of us the facts of his life as a spiritual aspirant, never did he chronologically narrate them to anyone. Consequently, the events of this period of his life have remained confused and complicated in the minds of his devotees. But as a result of investigations, so these young disciples like Sharadanandaji, Ramakrishna Anandaji, Swami Vivekananda, and other direct disciples who were well educated, who were well versed in the English education. They had learned so many things. So they started doing the investigation, the research properly, chronologically, everything was arranged. So no confusion. As a result of investigations, we have now been able to ascertain by His grace, the Lord's grace, the dates of many of these events. There has continued till now a controversy about the year of Master's birth. For he himself told us that his original horoscope was lost, and the one that was cast afterwards was full of errors. We have been able to solve that dispute also. How Sharadananda Ji Maharaj and other people did a lot of research and investigation. They could solve that problem too. They ascertained the correct almanac, the horoscope, though it was lost. We have been able to solve that dispute by consulting a number of almanacs. Number of almanacs, more than 100 years old. Therefore, it has become easy the dates of the events of the Master's life. Next, another fact which Sharadananda Ji Maharaj is telling, the facts about the Master's worship of Shodashi were not so far known to anyone. The facts about Master's worship of Shodashi. Holy Mother Sharda Devi, his own wife, he worshipped as Tripura Sundari or Shodashi, was not so far known to anyone. It will be easy. Now you have to think that Sharadananda Ji Maharaj is telling at that period when he was writing the book, not now. We should not take it not known to anyone until now. While they were researching and doing all those things, at that time, the fact of worship of Mother Sharda Devi as Shodashi was not known publicly to anyone. So the facts about Master's worship of Shodashi were not so far known to anyone. It will be easy for the reader to understand that event when he reads this part of the book. In conclusion, our humble prayer is that the book may receive the Master's blessing and be source of good to all. So now Sharadananda Ji Maharaj is concluding the preface to this part, the sadhaka's life. So now he introduces, so the introduction to this part. What is the name of this chapter or the aspect of Master's life? The divine incarnation as a sadhaka. The divine incarnation as a sadhaka. As I told you, sadhaka means a spiritual aspirant. So here he gives an introduction of how Ramakrishna practiced all this sadhana, how the divine incarnation was born as a human being with all the weaknesses of the human being, how he overcomes that and then goes to do the sadhana and realize the truth. So that will be a source of inspiration to us. Suppose he has done all these things with his superhuman energies from the day one, if he has become completely perfect and did all these things, then it would have not been a source of inspiration to us. We would have told, oh, he's a great soul, he's a avatar Purusha, he can do that. Can we do that? We are ordinary human beings. So that's the reason why now the avatar Purusha has taken all the human weaknesses. He lives like any other human being, like all of us. Then slowly, gradually overcomes all the limitations and then reaches the summit, so that it will be a source of inspiration to all of us. So let us go forward to see the introduction to the divine incarnation as a sadhaka. So after that, we will directly enter, we will read a little, then every day we will go on reading a little of this introduction. We will not go through because it's a long introduction. We will directly jump into, after one page of this reading, we will jump into the life of Sri Ramakrishna after the 17th year. How did he come to Calcutta? What happened there? Everything. We will jump there to that. But before that, we will see a little of the introduction. So what is that? Sharadananda Ji Maharaj is introducing this particular chapter. The study of the religious history of the world reveals that, except in the case of Lord Buddha and Sri Chaitanya, no detailed accounts, because they were all recent. Buddha lived some 2,500 years back, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu lived some 200 or 300 years back. No detailed account is available of the spiritual disciplines and practices of the incarnations of God as aspirants. Of any other earlier avatars, we cannot find out the historical events of the spiritual aspirants' life. What did they do to do the sadhana? So in the history of their lives, we do not meet any detailed descriptions other than Buddha and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of the indomitable zeal and unbounded love which they nurtured in their hearts and with which they proceeded to realize their spiritual goal. Nor do we get any clear picture of alternating waves of awe and admiration, of pang and pleasure. Nor do we get, it is not recorded, how they underwent the sufferings and joys in their life, like just like us, of hope and despair, gripped by which they now felt elated and then dejected, without, however, allowing the vision of the goal to grow dim even for a moment. Further, we are not able to trace the connection between their wonderful actions and behavior during the later part of their lives, on the one hand, and the education, actions, and aspirations of their childhood, youth, etc. on the other. For example, Shardanandaji is introducing, for example, how Lord Krishna, the darling of the gopis of Vrindavan, became transformed into Sri Krishna, the elderly person. So he was staying in Vrindavan and playing with all the gopis and all the children there. We know that as a small child, I used to go around Vrindavan. Then how did he grow up? He and Balaram, they used to go graze the cows there, then play with the gopis and other people there, Rajavasis. How did he grow up? He didn't have education, he didn't have any martial arts training because he was a Kshatriya. So arms training and everything, he was just grazing the cows, then going and taking butter and eating the butter. Only these things are there. What were the pranks and how did he kill some of the demons who came there to kill him, sent by Kamsa? Then how does he go to Kamsa's Mathura and kill Mathura? Only that much is recorded. After that, he goes away to Dwaraka. There already is a grown-up man. So then they start ruling there in Dwaraka. So that portion where he went into Sandipini Maharshi's Gurukula, that is now presently in Madhya Pradesh near Ujjain, Mahakal. So if you go to Ujjain in Madhya Pradesh, there is one Jyotirlinga of Lord Shiva, that is Ujjain Mahakaleshwar, about 40 to 50 kilometers away from that Ujjain. We have one Sandipini, one Rishi, Sandipini Rishi. His Gurukula is there. Even now you can go there. The tank, the water tank, the Gurukula, everything is present there. Even you can go now where Krishna had his education, Sandipini Gurukula. So how did he come there? How did he get his education? How did he stay there and get everything? Sudama, his friend Sudama, we know about Sudama. So they became friends there in that Gurukula. Sudama had come from Gujarat, some area of Gujarat, and Krishna had come from Vrindavan, and how they had the studies there, then went back. So all those things, all the details, what happened, how did he study, the details are not there in Krishna's life. To give an example, how did he grow up to be Lord Krishna, who was the giver of Mahabharata, or giver of Bhagavad Gita, or whatever we see as a grown-up Krishna. So we do not have any records of all those things. So what happened now? Shardanandaji Maharaj is investigating and finding out. So what is happening in the life of Ramakrishna? Let us see what Shardanandaji wants to tell. For example, how Lord Krishna, the darling of the gopis of Vrindavan, became transformed into Sri Krishna, the Lord of Dwaraka. And the resuscitator of religion is not clearly indicated. Only a fact or two of the wonderfully Catholic life of Jesus Christ before his 13th year are known to us. The all-conquering preaching peregrinations alone of Acharya Shankaracharya, who gave us again religion, Hinduism back. So that Acharya Shankara are also not there. It is not recorded properly. And so it is with all other avatars. So the reason for this is difficult to envisage. Why? Perhaps those details have not been recorded on account of the excessive devotion on the part of the devotees. Why? What was the excessive devotion? What made them to think so? Perhaps they were hesitant to attribute human imperfections to divine characters, and therefore thought it reasonable to shut them out from people's gaze. Or it may be the devotees thought that they would be doing more good to men by holding before their eyes as an ideal the fully developed noble ideas and sentiments of these great these great ones, than by tracing the history of their superhuman efforts to arrive at them. So they deemed it useless to place on record these endeavors. The devotees like to see their beloved masters ever perfect. They refuse to admit that even on assuming human forms, any kind of human weakness or any lack of insight or power could ever creep into their character. They are anxious to see an image of perfection in them from their childhood, but strive to see them as the perfect embodiments of omniscience and omnipotence and of the universal love and tolerance. It is no wonder then that they look upon all the efforts of the incarnations in the practice of spiritual sadhanas as also their bodily experiences like hunger, fatigue, sleep, disease, and death as mere simulations to elude the notice of unworthy men. Even in our own times, we have known many eminent devotees of our Master Ramakrishna, having the firm conviction that his divine disease was a feigning of this kind. So this is how gradually to get into this sadhaka life, we don't find the sadhana or sadhaka life of any other incarnation directly from childhood up to that, even with Lord Krishna or Jesus Christ or anybody, we see only the things recorded after they became great human beings, they had reached the perfection. Only those things are portrayed. But how did they do sadhana with all the imperfection, with all the human weaknesses, how they overcame that and became perfect, they realized the highest. The sadhaka life is not at all seen. So now we can see that aspect very well done and very well given by Shardanandaji Maharaj after a lot of investigation, and everything was done in a scientific manner. So now we shall now directly jump into, because there are so much of pages we have to go to see that introduction alone. If we do, we all of us, especially you, I can go on going to that introduction. So much of introduction is there into this sadhaka life. If I go on continuing, so you may become restless. So where is Ramakrishna after his 17th year? What happened to him in Calcutta? We're all waiting eagerly to know that. So we will jump now there. In the next class, again, we will read some more introduction for the sadhaka life. In the next class, we will again, like that, we will complete. For a long time, we will take that introduction. But we shall now directly jump into the Kali temple at Dakshineshwar. What happened? How did Ramakrishna come to Calcutta? What happened there? We are now jumping directly to that. Now we shall all get into the age of Sri Ramakrishna and come with him, see what is happening. From Kamarpukur, how does he come to Calcutta? Probably Ram Kumar was 45, the eldest brother of Ramakrishna. Ram Kumar was 45 when he started his toll. Toll means the Sanskrit Gurukula. In Bengal, it is called toll. In Calcutta in AD 1850. So that school or Sanskrit school or that Gurukula, which Ram Kumar started at the age of 45 in Calcutta, it may be they have recorded that in AD 1850. Worldly wants, mishaps, etc. had caused him anxieties for some time past. His wife had died after giving birth to her only son Akshay. It is said that the Sadhaka Ram Kumar had predicted the death of his wife and informed some members of the household that she would not survive the birth of her first son. The master had now reached his 14th year. Many rich and middle class people lived in the wealthy city of Calcutta. Ram Kumar could remain free from worldly anxieties if he could make the students of the school proficient in learning, as it would enhance his reputation as a scholar as well. He would perform religious worship and give written opinions on religious matters, which would surely fetch a few additional rupee, that is, little money, more money. Some such thought perhaps brought Ram Kumar to Calcutta after the death of his wife. Or it may be that at the death of his wife, he felt a great change and void in his life, and the idea that he would be free from them to a certain extent if he were engaged in various works in a far off place made him take the course. We have told the reader earlier the purpose of which he brought the master, that is Gadadhar, to Calcutta a few years after the starting of that school. We all saw that in the last class at Jhamapukur. The school now in Calcutta is started in Jhamapukur. If you go to Calcutta, if you go to this place, they will show you the place. That school is still there in Jhamapukur. And the manner in which the master spent the first 3 years after his arrival there in AD 1852. We must now turn our attention elsewhere if we are to follow the subsequent events of the master's life. Where shall we turn our view? To what event? The reader must now direct his mind to the series of events that were taking place by the will of God in a very well-known family in another quarters in Calcutta. So we have to shift our, just like in the drama or something, the scene will shift from one scene to another scene. Likewise, the author, Revered Shardanandaji Maharaj, is telling we must now turn our attention elsewhere. Where is that? If we are to follow the subsequent events of the master's life, we have to study that. It is mind to the series of events that were taking place by the will of God in a very well-known family in another quarters in Calcutta. What was that? At that time, Ram Kumar had enrolled himself in the party of Chattu Babu. Chattu Babu, in order to increase his income from farewell gifts and for improving the condition of his school. So a famous lady named Rani Rasamani, a famous lady named Rani means queen, Rasamani is the name. Ras comes from the Vrindavan term, Rasa Leela. Krishna used to play with the Gopikas and the Vrajavasis there. So that game, Rasa Leela. From that word, she has got the name Rasamani. So Rani Rasamani lived in Jan Bazar. Again, here in Bengal, Calcutta, the place is called Jan Bazar in the south of Calcutta. This famous lady, Rani Rasamani, lived in Jan Bazar. So all these terminologies, the name you have to remember, so I'm stressing it. Jan Bazar in the south of Calcutta. She was the mother of 4 daughters. Rani Rasamani was the mother of 4 daughters and became a widow at 44. She inherited the enormous property of her husband, Raja Chandra Dasa. So she inherited a lot of property from this husband, Raja Chandra Dasa. Since then, she had managed it herself and improved it much and had thus become well known to the people of Calcutta. She became famous and she endeared herself to all, not merely by her ability in managing the property, but also by her innumerable other virtues and good works, such as her faith in God, her energy, courage, intelligence, presence of mind, and above all, her sympathy for the poor. So, because of all these qualities, you can see she's like a queen. That's why she gets the name. She was earlier not a queen. She was only married to that family due to different contexts and circumstances. She was from a very poor family. But by the dint of her special character, nature, and qualities, what are the qualities enumerated here by Shardanandaji Maharaj? Virtues and good works, such as her faith in God, her energy, courage, intelligence, presence of mind, and above all, her sympathy for the poor. Now you can see even during that period, she coming from a very poor background, without much education. Now she could become the queen. She ruled that area, how popular she was. So all the things written by the Western authors that India never had any freedom for the women folk, so they denigrate Hinduism for that, is not true. You can see here that lady, Rani Rasamani, before she was called just Rasamani Dasi, she was from a poor family. She was married to this great husband, Raja Chandra Das, and how after the husband passed away, she's now a widow. In spite of that, she could achieve all these things. Everybody had the opportunity. So, what were the great qualities, virtues she had? Faith in God, her energy, courage, intelligence, presence of mind, and above all, her sympathy for the poor. These were the great qualities. Still, so many things are there. We will see. In the next class, I'm going to take up the detailed study of the life of Rani Rasmani. It's very interesting because she plays a very vital role in the life, in the sadhaka life of Sri Ramakrishna. That's why it's very interesting. Let us study all those things. It's very, very fine. So I will take up in the next class, I will take up the life of Rani Rasmani and go into the detail and then again come back to Ramakrishna's life. So let us see what Shardananda Maharaj is telling about this great Rani Rasmani, the speciality, the what do you call the special features or special qualities of this great lady. There was, it is said, a barrack of English soldiers situated near the Jan Bazar house of the Rani. The British soldiers lived there. The barrack of English soldiers situated near the Jan Bazar house of Rani. Drunken and unrestrained, the soldiers one day overcame the gatekeepers by force. You know, they were the rulers. So the soldiers could do anything in India. Nobody would ask. So the drunken soldiers, unrestrained, the soldiers one day overcame the gatekeepers by force, entered the house of Rani Rasmani. It was just like a big house, a palace, and began to plunder it. Mathur Babu, the son-in-law of Rani, and other men folk were then out on business. Unopposed, the soldiers were almost ready to enter the inner apartment where the ladies lived. When the Rani took up arms herself, so courageous, she was not afraid of the trained, well armed, the soldiers of the British, and also they were very, what do you call, rude because of their drunken state. So, but Rani was not at all afraid. When the Rani took up arms, she took the sword, ready to oppose them personally. It is said that the British government imposed this is one thing, she went and faced them. That was one of the things which tells how courageous she was. Though so many good qualities, but when it needed to protect other women folk and other people, even some of the men folk there, Rani took up arms, went against the British soldiers who were drunken, well armed. That was a courage. So another aspect of her intelligence is told by Shardananda Maharaj by giving this event. It is said that the British government imposed a tax on the fishermen for catching fish in the Ganga. You know, at that time, the Britishers would do whatever they wanted. They were just like in South Africa, we had the apartheid. So the same way or even worst way, they used to treat the people there, the poor people. So just plundering and taking money and everything, the resources of India to England was their goal. So different ways, they devised so many bad ways to fleece, to take away the money, to take away all the things, resources from India. So they used to tax. Nobody could question them. It is said that the British government imposed a tax on the fishermen for catching fish in the Ganga. Many of these fishermen dwelt in the estate of the Rani. Oppressed on account of the imposition of the tax, they narrated their tale of sorrow to her. The Rani heard it and told them not to be afraid. I'm going to protect you. I'm going to take you out of this. For a big sum of money, she took the lease, that part of the river for catching fish. Okay, you have taxed, isn't it? Okay. We will now purchase for a big sum of money because the British were only after money. Give a big sum of money and now take the permit to catch fishes in that part of Ganga. So the British gave, they were very happy, they will get a lot of money. So she paid a big sum, so sharp brain and intelligence and presence of mind. She promised the people there, I will bring you out of this tax of the British. So what did she do? She devised a very good plan. The Rani heard all the vows, the woes and difficulties of the fishermen, and she assured them not to be afraid. For a big sum of money, she took on lease that part of the river for catching fish. The government thought that the Rani would carry on business in fish, but as soon as the said right was obtained, so the government thought, the British government, that she has already given a big sum of money, and also now she will catch fish and she will give more tax, and that will be beneficial and more trade for British. They were very happy. But Rani had a different plan. The government thought that the Rani would carry on business in fish, but as soon as the said right was obtained, the Rani put chains across the river in many places. This made it almost impossible for the ships and other vessels of the government to enter the river. So that part of the Ganga, which she had purchased on lease for fishing, now she put on chains everywhere, many places. Now the British ships, big ships and boats, the business boats, the ships and other carrying arms and ammunition, many other things couldn't move through the Ganga to the other part. So a big portion of Ganga was fenced. She started putting chains. So now they cannot move any ship. This made it almost impossible for the ships and other vessels of the government, the British government, to enter the river. When the government protested against that action of the Rani, she sent word in a cool manner, not perturbed at all. I have purchased the right of catching fish in the river on payment of a large sum of money to you. What I have done is in accordance with my right. So she is going to the law. She has studied the law, the British law, the legal system. So she is going on through law itself. So now you cannot oppose her, you cannot punish her, you cannot do anything. She's taking law. She has studied law. So nicely she's going forward. See her presence of mind. See her intelligence. When the government protested against that action of the Rani, she sent word. I have purchased the right of catching fish in the river on payment of a large sum of money to you. What I have done is in accordance with the right, with my right. If ships and other vessels always pass through the river, the fish will flee away elsewhere, and I shall stand to lose much. How can I therefore remove the chains from the river? But if you agree to abolish the new tax, see why she planned all those things so nicely. If you agree to abolish the new tax on the right to catch fish for the poor people in the river, I, for my part, am ready to give up that right voluntarily. See, so nicely she devised the plan, so intelligent. There will otherwise be litigation, and the government will have to pay damages to me. All the same laws they had done to fleece, to trouble the people here, she used that, turned that against the British itself. Otherwise, you have to pay damages, lot of damages for the loss I am going to incur. If you take away that tax, then what will happen? I am, for my part, am ready to give up my right voluntarily. What have you to do, the government, if you agree to abolish the new tax on the right to catch fish in the river? Otherwise, there will be litigation and the government will have to pay damages to me. It is said that owing to that reasonable statement of Rani Rasmani, and also knowing that she was doing so in order to protect the poor fishermen, now the British had to yield. They couldn't do anything. They had to take away the tax. The fishermen, to poor fishermen, to protect them. She did all these things. She used her super intelligence. The government abolished the tax. In a short time, the fishermen then caught fish free of any tax and blessed the Rani. They blessed the Rani. The Rani evinced great interest in all matters conducive to the good of the people. We find the proof of it in her building the markets of Sonai. She built so many markets for people, the poor people of that area. They could come and sell their goods, sell the fishes or agricultural products for the farmers. So she was taking so much care of her subjects. So at that time, British, there was no power and they were not interested in doing anything to their subjects. They used to enjoy getting all the things from the British, all the modern things. The kings and the royal people used to just enjoy their life in the palace and just supporting the British. That's all. They were not taking care of the poor people. But that was not in the case with Rani. She was very much interested in serving the poor people. The Rani evinced great interest in all matters conducive to the good of the people. We find the proof of it in a building, the markets of Sonai, then Belegata and Bhavanipur, the ghat and the house for the dying at Kalighat. So the ghat, she used to build that steps and other places for the dying people, for the last, just like we now go to different centers this, where the AIDS people who are dying on the verge of death were taken care of. So where we give them food and help and so many other things, campus are provided. So like that, she started building so many places where people could die in peace. The ghats were built there for them to do all those things for the poor people. So near Kali Ghat, she built this ghat, so many ghats. So the ghat and the house for the dying at Kali Ghat, the ghat at Ganga at Hali Sahar, so that people can go easily towards Ganga because Ganga will be flowing. The current will be very great, and it is not so easy to go and take bath or do their religious rites. So the steps will be constructed from the bank into the river in such a way that people without difficulty they can go do their religious rites, they can take bath and so many other things. So at many places she started constructing the ghats which would help the people to do all their religious rites, take bath in Ganga. So she was doing so much for the people, the devotees, the poor. The Rani went on pilgrimage to Ganga Sagar, Triveni, Navadvip, Agradvip, and Puri, and spent vast sums of money in the name of gods. Moreover, she protected the tenants of the estate of Makimpur against the oppression of the indigo planters. She spent 10,000 rupees. At that time, 10,000 rupees was very, very huge. And got the Madhumati connected with the Navaganga by the canal of Tona. So she did so many canals and she could connect the smaller canals with that big Ganga so that people will get water all the time. So she did wonderful jobs like that. These and other various other acts of public utility stand to her credit. That was Rani Rasamani's courage and intelligence and love for the poor and service to the poor. So she had these great qualities such as faith in God, her energy, courage, intelligence, presence of mind, and above all, her sympathy for the poor, expressed through her unceasing gifts and unstinted distribution of food to all. By her noble qualities and actions, she, although born in a Kaivarta. Now in Bhagavad Gita, you can get the term to Lord Krishna. Kaivartaka Keshavaha. So in the meditation verses of Bhagavad Gita, you can see, you can go and search. There is a term Kaivartaka Keshavaha. Kaivartaka Keshavaha. So Kaivartaka means boatman. The boatman who crosses, who takes us from one bank of the river to the other bank, he helps us. So why is Lord Krishna called as Kaivartaka, the boatman? Because he carries us from the shore of this worldly transmigratory existence to the other shore of liberation. The samsara sagara, is the ocean where there are so many dangers, the life we are now leading, the samsara sagara. So it takes us from this part of the samsara sagara to the other part where it gives us liberation to the other bank. That's why he's called Kaivartaka. So just like when we are singing here, that particular song on Ramakrishna, always before doing the satsang in South Africa, we sing that Hindi song. What is that? You might be always, all of you remembering that. In that one word comes, Naiya. Hamare Naiya. Naiya means again the same thing. Boatman who makes us cross from this shore. So Ramakrishna is called as Naiya or Kaivartaka there. So in that song which we sing before the satsang, so you can go and search the word Naiya in Hindi. Naiya, you tell that Naiya, it is Naiya. So now here, Kaivartaka means boatman or fisherman's family. She was born into that. some such similar situation comes in Ramayana too. You might remember that. What is that? What happened in Ramayana when Lord Ramachandra was sent away to the forest by one of her mothers, that is Kaikeyi. Rama, Lakshmana, Sita had to go to the forest. They were walking. At that time, they had to cross a river. So then the boatman was afraid to take Ramachandra to his boat. He told, "Oh Lord Ramachandra, I'm very afraid to make you touch the dust, the foot dust of yours. When it touched a stone, it got converted into a lady. That is Ahalya, Mother Ahalya, who had the shapa, who had the curse. She was there as a stone. When small boy Ramachandra went there and his feet dust touched that stone, she got back her original form Ahalya. So people had heard about it, the greatness of Ramachandra. So now this boatman told Lord Rama, I can't allow you to step directly because if your foot dust touches my boat, then it might get converted into a lady, a woman. Already I have one wife in the house. It's so hard to maintain the wife and children there. And another woman coming to me now. The boat is if it gets converted into transformed into a woman, then how can I manage two wives? It will be very difficult. So first you should allow me. Then only I will allow you to cross this river. So first I have to wash your feet. So his only intention, he gave this reason only that he can touch the feet of Rama and wash his feet. So I will allow you to enter my boat only if you allow me to wash your feet. So he washed his feet of the dust and allowed him, and he sat in the boat. He made him cross. Now Rama, Lakshmana, and Sita, they are crossing. They have to pay the boatman, but they have no money. Everything, every ornaments, everything is being taken away. They had nothing to pay. But is the Lord, is the Raja, is the Kshatriya. How can he go free of cost? You can't take anything free of cost. So he had to pay the boatman. So they have nothing. Then he asked Mother Sita. Sita had carried some ornaments which were given from her what do you call, the mother and father's house. That ornament doesn't belong to Ayodhya. So she could carry her ornaments. So Ramachandra asked one ring of Sita Ma to be given to that person as a money for the transportation. But when the Lord Ramachandra wanted to give that ring of Mother Sita, golden ring, for the service he rendered to take him to the other shore, the Kaivartaka or that Naya, that person told, I can't take that. I can't take it from you. Why? Why can't you take it free of cost? Then he told, there is a rule. Then in India, that rule was there. I have found that even amongst the doctors, a doctor cannot charge another doctor. He has to do that free of cost. Suppose a doctor comes to another doctor when he's sick. And also there is a rule that the doctor should not treat himself if he gets some sickness. He has to go to another doctor. That is the rule. Because you'll do a lot of mistakes when you start treating yourself. That's why they don't allow the doctors to treat themselves. They have to go to another doctor. But when the doctor goes to another doctor, he cannot charge him. That is the rules. Likewise here in India, in Hinduism, that custom was there. The person of the same work, suppose this is Kaivartaka, or there may be a goldsmith, or there may be a blacksmith, or there may be some other. So those people couldn't charge from the people of the same work. So a boatman cannot charge another boatman. A doctor cannot charge another doctor. He has to do it free of cost. Now this boatman, Kaivartaka, is telling Lord Ramachandra, we belong to the same caste. We both of us are from the same work. So I can't charge you. Then Lakshmana was surprised. We are Kshatriyas, we are warriors. We were the king earlier. How can we belong to the same work that you do, the boatman's work? Then what was the reply of that great boatman, Kaivartaka? He told, you are also a Kaivartaka because I take people across this river from this bank to other bank. But you, O Lord Ramachandra, you are the Kaivartaka. You are taking in a bigger ship. So many lot of people, the devotees, from this bank of Samsara Sagara, the ocean of this transmigratory existence, to the bank of liberation, Mukti, Moksha. So you are also a boatman, you are also a Kaivartaka like me. So how can I charge you? I can't charge you. That is the custom, that's the rule. He didn't take the money. See, what was that idea of that boatman? So a boatman is called, or a fisherman is called Kaivartaka. So that's why here she was from the Kaivartaka family. So the Lord is also Kaivartaka. The Hindi term, the regional term is Naya. So that's what here we can see. She was from the, she was born in a Kaivarta fisherman's family, proved herself worthy of her appellation. Now, you should note that there is a wrong misnomer that the caste system is so oppressive in India. Yes, there are some bad features of that, but not that nobody can come up. See, this lady was from a boatman's or a fisherman's family. She could become the queen of that area. She became very rich, and that too a woman. So many of the things which are given to Hinduism that society was very bad and other things are false. Yes, some truth may be there. Every system will have some problems and anomalies and weaknesses. Now, the police system, people will be doing so many bad things when they are policing, when they get the what do you call power. So, can you abolish or put blame on the whole system? So, while we have education system, many children will come out as very bad people after education. Earlier, they were very good. So, can you blame the whole education system for that? Can you abolish the whole education system for that? No. There will be anomalies. There will be some weaknesses. Any system has that. Like that Hindu system too, the way it was applied was wrong. Maybe there may be some anomalies. So we can see from the lowest caste of the Kaivartaka, the boatman or the fisherman, how could you become a Rani who built that very big queen and big built the thing was built there, the Dakshineshwar Kali temple. So there was freedom for women. There was freedom for all caste of people in India at that time. That too, when people were oppressed and during the British rule too, it was there. So by then, now we can see that Rani Rasmani, her appellation, the Rani, is very true. She was from the Kaivartaka fisherman's family, proved herself worthy of her appellation, the Rani, and attracted the heartfelt love and reverence of all groups of people irrespective of caste. The Rani's daughters were married and had children at the time we are speaking of. By then, the third daughter of the Rani had died and had left behind only a son. Thinking that the said event would result in the gradual separation of Debonair Mathurnath, a third son-in-law, from the family, the Rani married her fourth daughter, Jagadamba Dasi, to him and made him her own son-in-law again, because he was very intelligent and he could manage the things of the state. The other son-in-laws were not so intelligent like him, but this son-in-law was young and educated and he was very dynamic. So he didn't want to lose when the one of the daughters died, then this Mathurnath will go away, will be separated from the family. So she didn't want to happen. So she married another daughter, the younger daughter of hers, Jagadamba Dasi, to Mathurnath. So thinking that the said event would result in the gradual separation of Debonia Mathurnath, a third son-in-law, from the family, the Rani married her fourth daughter, Jagadamba Dasi, to him and made him her own again. The descendants of the four daughters of the Rani are living till this day. That it is owned, the Dakshineshwar Kali temple is owned by them. They are divided and redivided, and they are the trustees of the Dakshineshwar temple, and all the master's room, everything is under their care. But Mahapurush Maharaj had predicted that the temple, whole temple complex and all the place where Ramakrishna did his sadhana will one fine day come to Ramakrishna Ashrama, the Sangha. People are trying a lot. Many people, many general secretaries, many people have tried, many president of our order have tried that. But there is no agreement of all the family people. Now, even most of the family people want to give it away to Ramakrishna Ashrama for the maintenance. The trustees want to do that. But it is still awaiting. One future day, as it is predicted by Mahapurush Maharaj Shivanandaji, it will come into the hands of Ramakrishna Sangha and everything will be well maintained. That's a different thing. But now the family members are still there. They are looking after the affairs of the temple of Rani Rasamani. So endowed with many virtues, Rani Rasamani had great devotion to the holy feet of goddess Kali. Sri Rasamani Dasi, longing for the feet of Kali. That was the words engraved in the official seal of our estate. We know that we all of us will have seals in our company, or even if individuals, they will have a seal after the signature. They will put their designation, the name, and other things. Seal. So, what was the seal of Rani Rasamani's that estate and or kingdom, whatever she was maintaining? On that seal, when she had to sign, that seal contained as Sri Rasamani Dasi, longing for the feet of Kali. That was the seal. So you can see what was the devotion to Mother Kali. These were the words, Sri Rasamani Dasi, longing for the feet of Kali, were the words engraved in the official seal of her estate. We have heard from the master himself that Rani's devotion to goddess was expressed in all her words and actions. Ramakrishna himself stand witness, and he tells, Ramakrishna used to tell that Rani Rasamani was so devoted to Mother Kali. We have heard from the master himself that Rani's devotion to goddess Kali was expressed in all her words and actions. The Rani is said to, it is said, had cherished in her heart for a long time a strong desire to go to Kashi, Vishwanath. She had a long cherished desire. It is the duty of all the Hindus that if you are born as a Hindu, or anybody can go there, but as a Hindu, born as a Hindu, you have to visit Kashi in your life at least once. That's compulsory. All the Hindus have to visit Kashi, Varanasi in their lifetime to see Lord Vishwanatha, Lord Shiva there, and Annapurneshwari, Mother Annapurneshwari there. In Kashi, it is Vishwanatha. The name of Shiva is Vishwanatha, the Lord of the universe. Then Mother, Divine Mother Parvati or Uma or Durga is called as, Kali there is called as Vishalakshi. Vishwanatha and Vishalakshi. And another form she took up, that Divine Mother Parvati or Uma took up the form of Annapurneshwari, ready to give food and nourishment to all the living beings. That's why when Ramakrishna went to Kashi, he had the vision whereby Mother Annapurneshwari was giving not only the physical food to all the living beings, the nutrition, but also mental and spiritual. The food we eat is for our nourishment. So she was providing the physical nourishment of the food and also of the spiritual nourishment, Annapurneshwari. That's why she's called Annapurna. Anna means not only that's the physical food we eat, whatever we take through all the organs, sense organs, through the eyes, what we see is also ahara for the eyes, the food for the eyes. So we use the term food for thought, food for the mind, food for the eyes, food for the nose, food for the tongue. We only tell ahara or food, annam is the food we eat through the mouth. But what we hear, what we see, what we feel, everything is ahara that goes inside to our mind, to our body, to nourish us. So that's why she's a mother, she's nourishing, Annapurneshwari, all these things. Now, endowed with many virtues, Rani Rasamani had great devotion to the holy feet of goddess Kali. Sri Rasamani Dasi, longing for the feet of, she wanted to visit Kashi. The Rani, it is said that had desired or cherished in her heart for a long time a strong desire to go to Kashi. Another name for Kashi is Varanasi. Kashi literally means city of light. It is bright. The whole city is bright with spirituality. For millions and millions of years, people are going to do their spiritual sadhanas, the disciplines. There, even now, sadhakas, munis, rishis are practicing spiritual sadhanas. So that condensed spirituality, past so many millions of years, has been condensed. So the whole city is vibrant with light, light of spirituality, consciousness. That's why the yogis and the great aspirant who have realized God, gone forward in spiritual life, can see the light in that whole city. That's why it gets the name Kashi. Kashi means literally city of lights. Ramakrishna had the vision there. He could see The city was golden. That spirituality, anything golden is bright. So spirituality condensed, it has taken the form of golden color and full of that golden light. Ramakrishna had the vision when he went to Kashi. So that name Kashi, the city of light, is true. So another name for Kashi is Varanasi. The same city is called Varanasi. Why it gets the name Varanasi? Because it is surrounded by two rivers, rather three rivers. But here the two rivers are Varuna and Asi. So the landmass between these two rivers, Varuna and Asi, then they go and join the Ganga. Ganga is also flowing on the other side. So because of these two rivers, Varuna and Asi, it gets the name Varanasi. The name. So they Kashi and Varanasi are the same thing. So Rani, it is said, cherished in her heart for a long time to a strong desire to go to Kashi and pay obeisance and offer special worship to Vishveshwara, Vishwanatha, the Lord of the universe, and Annapurna, the name of the Divine Mother, Parvati or Durga or Kali, is Annapurna there, or Vishalakshi, the Divine Mother. It is also said that she had collected and set apart a vast sum of money for that purpose. In India, they will keep a, what you call, piggy bank like thing, a pot. So they will go on collecting money for that purpose of going to pilgrimages or giving charity to temples or doing some religious work. They keep that money, sacred thing. Whatever they earn, they set apart some money. Every time, maybe they cannot do it at a time. So they will go on setting money. That is a practice in India. So for the sake of doing some charity to God, temples or God, do some pilgrimages, they go on setting money. So now this Rani Rasmani, in the same way, it is said that she had collected and set apart a vast sum of money because she was very rich and she was a Rani. So sum of money for that purpose. But as her husband had died suddenly and she had to shoulder the responsibility of managing the huge property, she was not able to carry out her intentions. So far, she couldn't go for this pilgrimage. Now that her son-in-law had learned to help her in this matter, and particularly the youngest Mathura Mohana, had become her right-hand man, she was getting ready to start for Kashi. Now she could give the responsibility of managing the whole estate and a kingdom, that small kingdom, and she could go in peace to Kashi. When everything was ready, she had the vision of Goddess. Now she made so many boats in the Ganga to go to Kashi because the Ganga from the Himalayas will flow through Uttar Pradesh, come down to the plains in Uttar Pradesh, and from Uttar Pradesh it flows to Bihar, Patna and other things, and from Bihar it comes to Bengal, and from Bengal it comes to this place Calcutta, and from Calcutta it will flow another 120 kilometers and reaches the sea, the Bay of Bengal. That place is called Ganga Sagar, where the sea where the Mother Ganga or water Ganga reaches, river Ganga reaches the sea, Bay of Bengal. It's called Ganga Sagar. So now you can go by boat in the river's way, and you will go to that Ganga. Through the Ganga, if you travel, you'll go to Bihar and UP, and in UP, Uttar Pradesh, it is Kashi or Varanasi is there in Uttar Pradesh. That is also on the bank of Ganga. So Rani Rasamani had planned to go on this ship. So many ships were there, small ships, big boats you can call, very big boats. So in one boat there was just cows and haystacks, the food for the cow. So for their maintenance, that cow, there were in that ship there were so many workers and servants. And another ship, it was only groceries. In another ship, there were so many other things. And another ship, the people, the family of Rani were being carried. So like that, there were so many ships ready to go, the big boats carrying to a pilgrimage to Varanasi. Now what happened? She was ready. Only a few more days are there to leave, go there. Then suddenly something happened. What happened? What was that? Very interesting. So now, when everything was ready for them to set to the pilgrimage to Kashi, before her departure, some say that Rani Rasamani started by boat and came to the village of Dakshineshwar to the north of Calcutta. She had already embarked on that through the boat, so many boats, big boats or ships. She had embarked to the pilgrimage and gone there. So when she had reached this portion from that, her area to Dakshineshwar, that area, when she came to the north of Calcutta, she got that prohibitory commandment when she was passing that night there in that boat. What happened? Some say that. So let us see what happened when she was about to embark or on the way to Kashi. What happened? Now she had a dream. The goddess Kali came, the vision of goddess in a dream the night before her departure. The goddess gave her instruction. What did Mother Kali instruct her? There is no need for you to go to Kashi. You want to go to Kashi to see me there. I am Annapurna there. Durga, there is no need for you. You are a great devotee of mine. You need not come to Kashi to see me there in Kashi. So what should you do? There is no need. Mother Kali is giving her the vision and she is telling there is no need to go to Kashi. Install my stone image in a beautiful spot. Install my stone image in a beautiful spot on the bank of Bhagirathi. Ganga gets another name. So many names for Ganga. Bhagirathi is one of them because it was Bhagiratha, the king Bhagiratha, who did lot of spiritual penance and got the boon from Brahma. That Brahma had that Mother Ganga there in the heaven or in the Brahmaloka in his Kamandalu. So he wanted for him to release that Mother Ganga to this earth. Bhagiratha did lot of thousands of years of tapasya, spiritual practices. Then pleased by his spiritual austerities, Brahma allowed Mother Ganga to go down to earth because he would take that Mother Ganga and make it flow on the ashes of his ancestors. 60,000 of his ancestors had passed away, was burned by one of the rishis because they did some problem to him. Just he opened his eyes and they were all burnt. They were ashes. They were there without getting liberation. They were in limbo, a sort of limbo. The ancestors couldn't go to the higher regions. In evolution, they couldn't proceed forward. So what was the remedy for that curse? So that if that Mother Ganga water would be bought and made to flow on that ashes, they will get liberation. That is the reason why we all of us go and take bath in Ganga so that all our sins will be removed and we get liberation. So even after the death, we see that the ashes are taken and submerged in Mother Ganga. That is the reason, because you will get liberation. So here Bhagiratha did that tapasya and allowed Brahma, because of his austerities, Brahma agreed to send Mother Ganga from the heavens or Brahmaloka, from his Kamandalu to earth. So, but she was so huge, falling from that to the earth, the earth orbit will be shaken, there will be some problem. So only Shiva could receive that great Ganga. So again, Bhagiratha had to make a lot of penance to please Lord Shiva. Shiva was pleased. Then Shiva asked, what boon do you want? Then he told Lord Shiva, please help me to get down Mother Ganga. It is not so easy for the Ganga to fall. Then Shiva was pleased and he told, okay, on the particular time I will stand there and hello, then collect her, then receive her on my head. So nothing will happen to me. The fall will not any trouble me. I'm the great God, Deva, the Dev, Mahadeva, nothing is going to happen. Then while coming down, Ganga was thinking, I'm going to fall on the head of Shiva and shake him, push him down. So with great fall, she was coming down. Lord Shiva could fathom her mind. He laughed within and told, oh yeah, come. So she opened his jata, that matted locks. When it fell, he locked her. Then she couldn't come out so many years. She started going inside this thing. It was just like a cave. Mother Ganga couldn't go out at all. Then again, he did tapasya and pleased Lord Shiva. Then Shiva told, okay, I will let her out. And slowly he let her. So that's why he let her out. That's why you can see on the head of Ganga, on the head of Lord Shiva, always Mother Ganga is flowing out. He locked her up and then slowly released. And from there it fell to the earth. So the earth was not disturbed. So it went on following Bhagiratha. He took through so many places. Now whatever where Mother Ganga flows, that is the path. So if you go to the place in Himalaya, that where Gangotri, you can find the seat. They have put that stone seat where Bhagiratha sat on that and did tapasya to get Mother Ganga. You go to Gangotri, you can even find now. So that's how Mother Ganga came to this place. Now, that's why she is called Bhagirathi. Bhagirathi, because Bhagiratha, the king, did lot of so much of penance to bring her to the earth and take her. So because of him, we got Mother Ganga. So another name for Ganga is Bhagirathi. That's why now what is Mother Kali is telling? Rani Rasmani, the goddess gave her the instruction, there is no need for you to go to Kashi. Install my stone image in a beautiful spot on the bank of Bhagirathi, there is Mother Ganga, River Ganga, and arrange for my daily worship and food offering. I shall manifest myself in the image, in that stone image, and accept your daily worship. The devout Rani was highly delighted to receive these instructions. She put off going to Kashi and made up her mind to spend the accumulated money on that holy undertaking. All that money she had set for the pilgrimage, so much of money, so many ships, so many things, everything she cancelled, everything because she got the instruction from Mother Kali and said that for the temple construction she collected more money. She sold or she got so many land there for the daily maintenance of that Dakshineshwar Kali temple, and she built a very huge temple of Mother Kali. Now you have to hear the words of Mother Kali there, which will be very useful for us. What is that? What are the words of Mother Kali to Rani Rasmani? She instructed, she came, she gave a dream, she gave a vision and told, the goddess gave her the instruction, Rasmani, there is no need for you to go to Kashi. Install my stone image in a beautiful spot on the bank of Bhagirathi. So many of us, after reading some science and other things, we get, oh, how can God manifest in stone or mud image or anything? Image worship is wrong. So you can get the clue here. Divine Mother herself is telling, I'll manifest through that stone image. So all that we do, the worship in the image, in the stone image or in the mud image or the photo is not false. So don't believe in the words of so many people who want to denigrate Hinduism. It is necessary. When Ramakrishna was asked the same question, Ramakrishna was told, just like the mother having so many children, so she knows that the old people in the family can't take the very difficult food preparation. So if it is too spicy, so special diet will be prepared for them. For the young babies, the diet will be different, and for the strong youths, it will be different. For the family members who are working hard in the office or in the field, for them the different thing will be there. So it is one food, but it will be spiced and it will be made in a different way for her different children according to their different tastes and their capacity to digest the food. Likewise, Ramakrishna tells the Divine Mother has made so many different arrangements for different kind of devotees at different stages of evolution. For them, some people need image worship. Some can go for the formless worship. Some can go for even more lower types of worship. Some can go for very higher, some for the mediocre. So varieties of modes of worship have been given to make it easy from wherever we are to go forward. So image worship is also one of them. So Divine Mother herself is instructing Rani Rasmani now to install a stone image of herself. So have faith in the image worship. All of you, I know that you have faith, but it can increase your faith now in the image worship. So now Mother Kali gave that instruction. There is no need to go to Kashi. Install my stone image in a beautiful spot on the bank of Bhagirathi and arrange for my daily worship and food offering. So here also, the food offering, the daily worship, the service we do. Many people may tell that, oh, will the Lord take whatever food you offer? Or will the service will be taken by the Lord? You are just superstitious. No. See, Divine Mother Kali herself is telling her devotee, do all that arrangement, food offering and other things, I will receive it. Arrange for my daily worship and food offering, I shall manifest myself in the image and accept your worship daily before doing the worship, before doing all the service of your Ishtadevata, personal God. You can just read these line instructions again and again, keep that written in a diary, the instruction of Mother Kali, then read it, you will get more faith, then you can do the service of the Lord in a still better way and you will feel a lot of joy. So there is no need to go to Kashi, install my stone image in a beautiful spot on the bank of Bhagirathi and arrange for my daily worship and food offering. I shall manifest myself in the image and accept your worship daily. The devout Rani was highly delighted to receive this instruction. She put off going to Kashi and made up her mind to spend the accumulated money on that holy undertaking. We cannot say how far that tradition is true, but it is certain that the Rani's long accumulated devotion to the Mother of the universe was about to assume a visual form in the shape of the temple and the image. She purchased a spacious piece of land on the bank of Bhagirathi, spending a large sum of money, and began to build on it a big temple immediately. See, this is the faith. I have told you many times about faith, Shraddha. Now, once the command has come, no more delay. Immediately she put it into action. A belief is just a belief where you hear so many things and you don't put it into action. So when belief is put into action, so Shraddha or faith is belief in action. So she didn't wait. Immediately she started working. What is that? She has so much faith in Mother Kali. She's so much devoted. She doesn't sit quite after the commandment. So what did Rasmani do? So it is certain that Rani's long accumulated devotion to the Mother of the Universe was about to assume a visible form in the shape of the temple and the image. She purchased a spacious piece of land on the bank of the Bhagirathi, spending a large sum of money, and began to build on it a big temple with 9 spires. Gopuram, spires. You can see, go there and see the 9 spires. Dakshineshwar photo. If possible, our people can, here, the handlers can show that Dakshineshwar 9 spires, the dome and everything, the tower. So that big temple, besides some other small one subsidiary to it, there were provisions also for the well laid out garden attached to them. Though the work of the construction was going on for 7 or 8 years, huge task. And in those days, modern facilities like truck and other excavators to dig and the big bulldozers for the works, then JCBs were not there. Everything has to be done manually. For the big things to be pushed, elephants have to be bought. So no machineries were there. You couldn't put that high rise building. Just like now, maybe in 1 or 2 years, you can bring up many storied buildings. Even now you require 2 or 3 years. Then think of those days when the modern facilities were not there for building. No construction equipments were there. Everything had to be done manually. That's why it went on for many, many years. So the 9 spired, the big building with all the subsidiaries, smaller temples, a very big complex of temples. There was provisions also for a well laid out garden attached to that. Though the work of construction was going on for 7 or 8 years, the whole edifice was not completed even by AD 1855. So the Rani reflected within herself, as life is uncertain, the desire of installing the Mother of the Universe may not be fulfilled in my lifetime if it takes such a long time to complete the temple. Resolving in her mind, thus, the Rani had the ceremony of the installation of the Mother performed on the Snana Yatra day on May 31st, AD 1855. I think just few days back when we started this class of Great Master, I told you in one of the class about the Snana Yatra. So Jagannath Puri, that Snana, the great bath will be given. And after that, we can see now the Rath Yatra is going on, the chariot festival. After the Rath Yatra, no, after the Snana Yatra, he will be kept in quarantine because he has caught cold. So Krishna, Balarama and Subhadra, that images will be quarantined for a few days, for the 14 days, because they have caught cold and they will be given medicines. Then after that, this Rath Yatra begins. Now the Rath Yatra is going on. Snana Yatra happened recently. So on that day, Ramakrishna's relics also, they will give the bath. So all those things I have told in a few days back. So now she couldn't find any auspicious day to start the inauguration or to inaugurate the temple. So the nearest good auspicious day was the Snana Yatra. So she decided, resolving in her mind, thus the Rani had the ceremony of the installation of the mother performed on the Snana Yatra day on May 31st AD 1855, as it is necessary for the reader to know a few events that took place before this. We narrate them after this. So now that great grand temple is getting ready. Why all these? The stage is being created for the great avatara Ramakrishna to start his Leela there, the sadhaka life. Everything is being prepared. And who is preparing the ground here? Who gave the instruction? None other than the Divine Mother, Kali, the Mother of the universe, Prana, the original force of this whole universe, the power of Parabrahma Swarupa, Shakti. Mother Kali is preparing all these things for the great avatar to do. So you can see the wonderful combination of Lord Vishnu, of Lord Shiva, and then Divine Mother Kali, the Mother of the universe. So what a wonderful combination we get here. As Lord Krishna is told in Bhagavad Gita, I take this human form, assisted by Mahamaya, who is my power. The Maya or the power of mine, Vaishnavi Shakti. So I will take her help to do this, come to this thing and be born as a human being, as an avatara, and do all the work. So now you can see the Divine Mother is also participating. She is doing all the arrangement in the behind the scene. There, Lord Vishnu is coming, Lord Shiva is coming, here Divine Mother is coming. What more do we want? And all this is being readied for, is it for Ramakrishna? No, for all of you, for all of us, all this great Leela. Ramakrishna is doing this Leela, he has come down, the Gadadhar Vishnu, Lord Shiva, and Mother Kali are all doing all these things. Why? Why is it? All this Leela has been being done for us, for all of you, so that we will be helped to go forward in spiritual life, rise to the height of the divinity. So let us make use of it. Do not waste this greatest opportunity. In the last Viveka Chudamani class, Shankaracharya is telling, Labdhva Katanchin Narajanma Durlabham. So after getting this human life, which is very, very difficult to get, and after that getting the desire to get liberation, that is Mumukshutvam, getting spiritual life, then a great guru who has initiated us into the spiritual life, Mahapurusha Samshreha, then if we don't put in the effort, Yateta, then it is as good as committing suicide. We are wasting the opportunity. This beautiful life has been given, human life. Then we have got the urge to get liberation, to lead a spiritual life. Then we have got great gurus, satsang of great people, saints. The Ramakrishna order, Sangha, Guru themselves have come to give us initiation to these foreign countries and other places too. And after all these things, and the great God Vishnu himself has come down, Lord Shiva has come down, and Mother Kali is doing all these arrangements. What for? For us to take the example, for us to take the inspiration and start leading the spiritual life, go forward in spiritual life and realize your true nature, Atmagnana, to become perfect in our life, to know yourself. And if we don't try, after all this so much of thing done by the God himself, by Divine Mother herself, then that's why Shankaracharya calls in Vivek Chudamani, the 4th verse, Modadhihi. I call such a person who will not, after all these things, it can happen only by the grace of God. You can see the grace of God manifested here. And after all this grace of God, getting a human life, then liberation, desire to get liberated, and the Guru's Samshaya, Mahapurusha Samshaya, the Satsanga or holy company, and all this grace of God, if we don't try to get liberation, after getting the Mantra Diksha and other things, if we don't put in the effort to realize God, then he tells, I call him a Modadhihi, the most greatest foolish person on the earth, if you don't try to realize God. That's the hard word of Shankaracharya. I just explained it in the last class in Vivek Chudamani. And also he's telling that person who is not trying to realize God is really committing suicide. You need not go and hang yourself or take some poison or burn yourself. But if you don't try to realize God, if you don't try to realize your own nature, Shankaracharya is telling, and Ishavasya Upanishad is also telling, the Atmahananokaraha, those people who are not trying, who are not remembering God, that much moment of life is as good as committing suicide. These are the words used. So let us make you seeing the condensed form of grace of God in the form of the Avatara, Rani Rasamani building this temple, Mother Kali herself giving all the instructions. Everything is guided and directed with the great producer, the director. It is all for you and me, for us to do sadhana and realize our own nature. Then if you don't put in the effort, you are wasting this great opportunity. So let us try to realize God, get inspiration from this and realize God. I think we have already completed our time. In the next class, we will take up again that introduction, because that's also very, very important. There he elaborates so many other things of the connects that some of the aspects of the childhood days, some more incidences will be elaborated and some more introductions will be given, so which will be helpful for the further studies. So we will go in again a little for the introduction, and again we will take up a little of Rani Rasamani's life. Then we will enter to Ramakrishna's life like this. So we will go on. So we will make these three combination in the next class. Rani Rasamani's life a little, then the introduction of Shardanandaji Maharaj a little, and then the main subject is the life of Ramakrishna. So we will see that in the next class. Today we will end it here. Now we have about 4 to 5 minutes of time. I request if you have any questions or doubts, you can ask. If you
Om
have
Namo
any Om Namo Narayanaya, may I know who is speaking?
This is
Chandra, please tell.
The Sodashi, the special prayer for the worship of Mother, is that done on a regular basis in the ashrams?
Yearly, when that Shodashi Puja comes, it is done.
Okay.
That yearly, when the that Palaharni Kali Puja, Ramakrishna did that, performed that on the day of Palaharni Kali Puja. So yearly once we get that. So on that day it is done, Shodashi Puja. Shodasha means 16. Divine Mother taking the form of a 16-year-old woman or girl. The wife of Shiva, Divine Mother taking that form, she is called Shodashi. Tripura Sundari, Lalita Parameshwari, different names are there. Yes. Tripura Sundari means the most beautiful form of this whole, all the 14 worlds. So she is called Tripura Sundari. Her another name is Shodashi. So that Divine Mother Shodashi in her, that beautiful form, was invoked on the body of Mother Sharda Devi on the day of Palaharni Kali Puja and worshipped by Ramakrishna himself. Ramakrishna himself invoked that Divine Mother, Tripura Sundari or Shodashi. Now we invoke them in the Kalash or in the image or in the photo. But here Ramakrishna invoked that Divine Mother Raja Rajeshwari or Tripura Sundari or Shodashi in the person or in the body of Mother Sharda Devi, and then brought that Mother Shodashi into the body of Sharda Devi, then manifested that power. So that is worshipped as Shodashi Puja.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Any other question or any other doubts?
Maharaj.
Subject? Yeah, please tell. May I know who is it?
Maharaj, Madhu here.
Yes, Madhu, please tell.
Maharaj, you told about divine incarnation. We know Thakurji is divine incarnation.
Yeah.
And we know they did the sadhana.
Yeah.
And sometimes this mind gives this doubt. Since Thakur was a divine incarnation, he could do the sadhana in 12 years and he could achieve whatever he achieved. And we being mortals, and you did allude to this at the very beginning, we are mortal souls.
Yeah.
We are not divine incarnations. But so how do we reconcile these two? Because he did, because he was an incarnation. How do we I think, simulate, or how do we emulate his example? Because we are not incarnations, we are
Yeah.
just ordinary souls. How do we reconcile these two? Because the mind always gives this doubt. You are an ordinary person, so why do you do all this? So this doubt naturally comes.
Yeah, definitely. I will answer that. Now, you yourself are telling that you are ordinary soul. No, you are not ordinary soul. Are you not the child of the Lord? How can the child of the Lord be ordinary? We are all the children of God, isn't it? So when we are all the children of God, how can we be ordinary? We have that power, latent power in us. We are so powerful, but we are not aware of it. That's all. We are very strong. We have a lot of power in us. We have infinite power. Just like the spark of the fire is the fire itself. So children of God are God ourselves. We have that power of the God in us. All the property of my father belongs to me, isn't it? Of my father and mother belongs to me. So the spiritual property and this highest property belongs to every one of you. We are all children of God. So we are very powerful. So that is the reason why the Lord takes incarnation again and again to remind us. We forget, we get hypnotized by this world of Maya. We forget our real nature. So he takes this avatar again and again, as Krishna tells, Yada Yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuttanam adharmasya tadatpanam sujamyaham. Krishna tells, I will come down again and again to this world to lift you up. So to remind you that you are great, you are the part of me. You are children of the God. So you are children of immortality. So you are not ordinary. You have that infinite power in you, all of you. So to remind us, we have forgotten. We are just steeped in the worldliness and forgotten that. So to remind us, he comes down and does that all this sadhana so that we get inspiration. And he has given so much of discount, Ramakrishna tells, whatever I have done, if you do 1/16th, I've done 16. See, in India, they tell 1 rupee has 16 annas. 1 rupee is 16 annas. So that is one small part. So Ramakrishna, whatever sadhana I have done, even if you do one part of that 16, 1/16th of that, you will attain a lot. You need not do all the 16. Even if you start again, Ramakrishna gives the discount. He tells, if you keep one step, I will keep 10 steps to you, maybe 100 steps also. So there is no problem at all. So he comes again and again. We are not ordinary people. Just take the cue, start it, that's all. Even the, the 1,000-mile journey starts with the first step. So keep this first step, then that much is enough. The Lord will take care of you. He will take up. Okay. And you note, you are not ordinary people. We are all children of God. We are the part of God. When we are the children of God, we are God. See, the child of an emperor is the next emperor, isn't it?
Yes, Maharaj.
You are the children of immortality. Yeah.
Okay, Maharaj.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, any other questions? Any other doubts on the topic today, on the discussion? Okay. So we shall end the topic with a prayer. And tomorrow also we have the same discussion in the morning. We'll be studying the same subject tomorrow too. So we'll be taking up the introduction, portion of the introduction, then little life of the Rani Rasamani's life. Then we will come to Master's life too. Then that is Thursday, Friday. Saturday we have the Bhagavad Gita class, study of Bhagavad Gita in the evening. Then Sunday, Monday morning, again, we'll be having the same discussion of Great Master. Then Monday evening, we have the science of worship, the significance of worship, the meaning of the mantra and how to do all the rituals, what is the meaning of rituals, everything. I'm discussing in details about that science of worship. Then Tuesday, we have the Viveka Chudamani class, the manual, the text manual of Vedanta, written by Shankaracharya. Then Wednesday, again, we have Bhagavad Gita. So all are welcome to this discussion to keep our mind at a very high so that we'll get inspiration again and again, thinking of God, reminding us through this study, we will get inspiration to do sadhana and discover our real nature. We are all not ordinary people. We are all the children of immortality, children of God. So we shall realize our true nature by this study. So thank you. Namaskar to all of you. Om Priyatam Pundarikakshaha Sarvayagneshwaro Harihi Tasmin Tushte Jagat Tushtam Prenite Prenitam Jagat Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.